Hi, hello. Good day to you, viewers. Welcome back to this channel, Legal Opinions with Clementina. I am your girl, Clementina Iukiri, Esquire. I'm a legal practitioner and the anchor of this YouTube channel. And sometime last week, in the month of October 2022, I had posted a teaser on my social media handles informing my followers and my viewers, my distinguished friends and colleagues, that I will be coming up with a series on tax law and taxes as applicable in Nigeria. This series will come, like I mentioned, in series, part 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth, until we're able to exhaust the topic of tax in Nigeria. I'm a legal practitioner with quite an experience in corporate commercial litigation in Lagos, and also I have a flair and a strong interest in tax law, and very recently the novel area of data law and privacy law. So, but for the purpose of this series on tax, we should be addressing the different types of taxes applicable under the Nigerian law. And of course, we can't exhaust all of them in a singular video, so that is the essence of the series. But before we go on to address the specific type of tax that we'll be talking about today, let us first of all decide or agree on what tax means. What does it mean when they say pay your tax is a tax? What does it mean literally? What do you understand by the word tax? Tax legally and very simplistically, literally, is a compulsory contribution paid to government by its citizens to support social amenities such as schools, electricity, potable water, roads, and hospitals, etc. etc. These are taxes for the benefits of the citizens. Remember, for those who are Christians, if you're a non-Christian, you may have heard of this, that you pay tithe, right, to God. And then Christians believe that it is one of those directives of God that 1/10 of your earnings, of your produce, of your harvest annually should be given to God, by giving it to the house of God, to the children of God, the preachers, the pastors, to encourage and enhance the growth and the care of God's servants. So that is the way it's done right now. So tithing. So you can also imagine tax as a form of tithing, but this time to the government authority. And the purpose of this tax is to foster basic amenities for the citizens of Nigeria in our circumstance. So yes, I am speaking from Lagos, Nigeria. Like I mentioned, I'm a legal practitioner based in Lagos. So apart from the topic, or apart from the definition of tax, there are a number of questions that people usually are curious to know. The questions are, what is personal income tax? Okay, I've heard about that. Some call it PIT, some call it PITA. Okay, if you say PITA, that is the Act, Personal Income Tax Amendment Act, PITA. So what is PIT? Oh my God, how am I supposed to do that? Then, the question, what are your rights as a taxpayer? As a taxpayer, what are my rights? What are my obligations as a taxpayer? Is it only public servants that pay tax? Who pays personal income tax? How do we pay the personal income tax? What are the general requirements of tax filing and payment of tax under the PITA? What is payee? Oh my God. I need to know, what are the obligations of the employee? I'm an employer. When it relates to, as it concerns tax, what are the obligations, my employees? What are my obligations as an employer? On what source of income do we tax Nigerian residents? What about non-resident Nigerians, foreigners? How do they pay their tax? Are musicians, actors, and sportsmen taxed? What is income earned abroad and foreign source income? What is domiciliary account? Oh, on what type of earnings or income do we pay personal income tax? How can I confirm my TIN number online? Which income on earnings are exempted from personal income tax purposes and all that? The list of questions goes on. And thankfully in this series, we shall be addressing them one after the other until we exhaust the whole of them. Now, but for the purpose of today's video, going quickly into the video without further ado, we shall be looking at types of taxes that are applicable in Nigeria as of today, right? And these type of taxes are governed by certain laws, enactments in Nigeria, and they are listed in the Federal Inland Revenue Service website. They are there, you can check them up for the types of taxes applicable in Nigeria today. So we have the company's income tax, which is the CIT. We have the personal income tax, then we have the withholding tax, we have value added tax, we have personal income tax, stamp duties, capital gains tax, national information technology development levy is a form of tax, and then tertiary education tax. These are a list of the taxes applicable in Nigeria today. However, we shall be taking one, which is personal income tax, PIT. I would think that it is one of the most common that is applicable to individuals. So we should go there. I know value added tax is very common because we buy a lot of goods, right? And services, right? We render a lot of services. But then this one is quite personal, so I'll begin with this. So now, personal income tax is guided or regulated or created by virtue of the Personal Income Tax Act, CAP, P8, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, as amended. Now, the tax is imposed on income of individuals, corporate soul or body of individuals, communities, families, and trustees or executors of any settlement. An individual is entitled to a consolidated relief allowance of 200,000 or 1% gross income, whichever is higher, plus 20% of gross income. That is long story, right? But the basic understanding point of this is that personal income tax is taxed on an individual or a corporate body, being it a business name, a limited liability company, a business concern that is duly registered under the CAC, and it is taxed on the earning of that taxable individual. For instance, your salary monthly is 50,000. There is a tax that is taxed on that earning. This is your earning, this is your salary, personal income. So they will tax you. So any tax that is tied to your personal earning, your income, as the word connotes, is personal income tax. And there are other ways to know that, okay, this is personal income tax, aside the fact that it is tied to your personal earnings. The rate of tax ranges from 7% to 24%, depending on the amount of chargeable income individuals are subject to. Minimum of tax of 1% of gross income, where the income is less than 300,000 per annum. So let's say your salary on a monthly basis is 20,000, that would mean times 12 is less than 300,000 per annum. So the personal income tax would now be what? 1% of the value of that money annually. Do you understand? So that is the way it goes. But if your salary is above that, then the taxable percentage, the range of tax for your personal income tax will differ. So now, the tax is administered by states. It is the state government and the states of the Federation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including the FCT, the Federal Capital Territory, that administers this particular type of tax. So they are the one that we pay to. So if I were to pay my personal income tax from my salary on a monthly basis, because I pay mine on a monthly basis, cumulatively for 1 year, right? I will pay to the Lagos State government because they are the one in charge of collecting or administering the personal income tax. Then all states have their Internal Revenue Service (IRS) in respect of their residents. So they may issue you your tax ID, tax identification number, with which they can identify you that you are a tax-paying resident of the various states of Nigeria. Now, this personal income tax, is also administered by FIRS, that is Federal Inland Revenue Service. This one is federal government, right? On non-residents, which are members of non-residents are foreigners who are dealing and earning money in Nigeria one way or the other by maybe they are expatriates or they are consultants, they work in Nigeria, they earn some earnings, personal earnings from Nigeria economy. They are also taxed. So, but the federal government through the FIRS will be the ones to administer such personal income tax. And also, members of the armed forces, members of the police force, officers of the Nigerian Foreign Service are regulated and administered by the FIRS. So that is the way it's splitted, right? Now, the due date for filing returns of the tax is 31st of March of every year. So the 31st of March of every year, individuals or corporate bodies are supposed to have filed in their returns for the year ended. Payee, which is when you remit your earnings monthly, maybe you're earning from business, personally, or from your salary, 10th of the following month of every succeeding month, you have to remit that money, the cash, from the percentage that is taxed on your earning. You have to remit it to the government, to the state government, the IRS, if it's in the case of a resident, and FIRS if it's a non-resident, and members of the armed force, like we explained earlier. Now, an employee shall file return of emoluments and tax deducted from the employees in the preceding year, not later than 31st of January of every year. So imagine if employers are deducting, the tax as charged by the law, under the law, from your earnings or your salary. That employer is under a legal obligation to return the emolument in a combination of, or combine all the monies, over the period of 1 year, and the tax deducted, you must file it not later than 31st of January of the following year. That is the way it goes. Then a person who fails to file a return, which is the personal income tax, what is the repercussion? What is the consequence of such failure to comply with the law as it relates to tax? You shall be liable to conviction, upon conviction, to a fine of 5,000 naira and a further sum of 100 naira for every day during which the failure continues, or imprisonment of 6 months, or both. So you see how it goes. If you feel you have evading tax, you're evading your personal income tax, you're receiving salaries, but then you team up with your employers so that they will not pay tax, they won't pay, return your tax, because you want to collect all the monies. Upon conviction, when the law is wanting to catch up with you, and then you're taken to the court to face the charges on tax evasion, upon conviction, if they convict you that you are really evading tax, you are not paying your personal income tax, the law provides, the Personal Income Tax Act, amended as earlier cited, provide that they will fine you for 5,000 naira. Therefore, each day of the default or failure, they will count it from you from when the tax return was due and remittance was due is 5,000. Then every subsequent days, 100 naira, 100 naira times the further number of days of failure to pay your tax. And then, or in the alternative, they can say, go to jail for 6 months. In some circumstance where you are really terrible at the tax evasion, they say, pay both the money and go to jail. So these are the consequences of evading personal income tax. Now, an employer who fails to file a return shall be liable upon conviction to a penalty of 500,000 for a body corporate and 50,000 in case of individual. So, as an individual, if I were to be an employer of labor and then I'm paying salaries, one of my obligations is to ensure that from the salary being paid, I deduct the requisite tax. So if I were, for instance, paying 50,000, right, federal minimum wage right now, to my employee, 50,000 times 12 months is where above that is about 600,000 naira. So it's above 300. So the percent of taxation will not be 1%, right? So could be 7%. Let's do 7%, right? So 7% of that every month, I will deduct it. I will deduct it for the 12 months, and then on or before January next year, I will remit everything and file the returns. And if I'm failing at carrying other legal obligation, then if I were running a company as an employer, then the company will be fined 500,000 naira. Then if I were to be an individual, I will be fined 50,000 for my failure to do that. So that will be that for personal income tax. I know that there are some things that need more clarification, which is the exact percentage of personal income tax. It's usually a little. We'll do more work on that in our next series. We're going to break it down to make it clearer as it relates to the exact percentage of personal income tax. Thank you for watching to this point. Keep posted because we'll be giving you great content to help us all as good citizens of Nigeria. Thank you. I remain your girl, Clementina Iukiri Esquire. And if you have any comments, suggestions, whatever, I'll leave my email address on the screen so you can send them to me privately. Then in our next series, we'll address all of that. Thank you so much, and bye for now.